Hello and welcome. So, you want to hear a story? Because I have one for you. The year is 2019 and I've played the ever-loving shiz out of Borderlands 2 and ready for a new game that doesn't have the words pre-sequel in its name. And luckily for me, the dickhead himself, Randy Pitchford, had an announcement to make at PAX East 2019. After doing some shitty magic trick, he reveals the number 3 on his back, and it was beautiful in all its cringy glory. And later that year, Borderlands 3 releases, and there were a few issues. It was an Epic Game exclusive, it had performance issues, and Gearbox made it their goal to constantly patch out every little fun thing within the game, which was slightly annoying. However, the game now has not had an update in quite a while. The performance issues have been smoothed out, and it is no longer an Epic Games exclusive, which is why I dived back into Borderlands 3 to ask a simple question. Is Borderlands 3 worth playing in the year 2024? Oh boy, this one is a doozy, so strap in. I said the story of Borderlands 2 was okay, but I highlighted the writing and described it as millennial writing. Borderlands 3 took that writing style and escalated it off of a fucking cliff. The writing in this game is absolute garbage. The humor in this game is absolutely bad. In Borderlands 2 there were at least some attempts at humor that made me chuckle, but Borderlands 3's attempts at humor is equivalent to radioactive waste. Cringe that can game end you. However, when it comes to how the story is written, it's arguably even worse. Now, I'm not going to go over every bit of stupid writing in this game, as that will make this video very long. But here are some of my favorites. Maya somehow knows that Ava is going to be a siren, and the only explanation we get is that Maya just somehow knows, but can't really explain why. Now there can only exist a certain amount of sirens at a time, and if one gets, well, Alt F4'd, her powers will go to someone else. How Maya knows that Ava will get this power is complete fucking insanity. There is also Maya's death, where she dramatically gets Thanos snapped out of existence and doesn't even bother to put up a fight, while she dramatically says her final words to Ava and dramatically fades out of existence. There is Lilith sacrificing herself at the end of the game for no reason. In the early stages of the game, everybody complains about how terrible Pandora is and how they can't wait to leave this horrible planet. But then at the end, they claim that Pandora is their home and they don't want it to get destroyed. So Lilith sacrifices herself to save Pandora and probably killed everyone on Alpus. So good job, I guess. And finally there are the cutscenes and the fact that the Vault Hunter you are playing as, according to Gearbox, is in the cutscenes, but no one ever interacts with the Vault Hunters. And this is important to the story, as technically the Vault Hunters should be able to assist with some of these events, as they are supposed to be in these cutscenes, but they don't for some reason. Despite the one cutscene where Troy face locks the Vault Hunter, there is no other example in this game where the Vault Hunter is ever interacted with in a cutscene. But wait, there's more, as the characters in this game have either completely been destroyed or new characters that are introduced that are extremely annoying or just plain forgettable. This game does the thing where the writers desperately want you to believe the characters are smart, but they constantly do dumb shit. This game also has a bunch of characters that were introduced with no real purpose. Some of these characters could have been cut out and the story wouldn't have been affected at all. And let's not forget the absurdly atrocious and annoying villains that just failed to capture the charm and charisma of Handsome Jack. And Troy is a perfect example of a character that adds nothing to the story and probably should shouldn't even have been in the story. I also think it doesn't help that the game actually has a much better villain in Aurelia Hammerlock, who is much better than the Calypsos in literally every way, and would be a more interesting villain as she was a playable character in the pre-sequel and a Vault Hunter. Now there are two characters I specifically want to highlight. Let's start with Lilith. Gearbox released an expansion for Borderlands 2 a few months before Borderlands 3 released to help build Lilith as the commander of the Crimson Raiders. However, in Borderlands 3, she is practically useless. She loses her powers early in the game, then does nothing throughout the majority of the game, gets told what to do by an idiotic teenager, and at the very end stupidly sacrifices herself for no reason. And I have to ask why. Look, I don't think any of these characters are great characters, but Lilith has been around from the first game, and they could have at least made her act like a commander and show that she is still capable of commanding even without her powers, but no. And that leads me to the final character I want to talk about, Ava. By far the worst character I have ever seen in any of the games I have played. She radiates toxic cringe, is an absolute asshole, and is dumb as fuck. Despite this, the game desperately wants you to think her shitty, cringy dialogue is quirky, wants to convince you that she is likable, and wants you to believe she is smart. Now, I have seen some people defending her by saying she is a teenager, and that's just what teenagers do. That's just how they are. Wrong. Ellie in The Last of Us is also a teenager. However, she is likable, even though she has some moments of teenage attitude towards Joel. She has some great moments with Joel, and it makes the player like her more. The player gets to see the fun side of Ellie, the wholesome side of Ellie, and it helps flesh out her character. But Ava just has none. She is either preaching to people who are smarter than her or being flat out annoying. And well, that's it. Then there is also the factor that she constantly ignores and disrespects Maya and gets her killed because she doesn't listen to her. And after Maya dies, she just goes ahead and blames Lilith. She claims Lilith's goal of opening the vaults instead of trying to fight the Calypsos is the reason Maya died, despite the fact that beating the Calypsos to the vault is going to help defeat them in the first place, and that Ava literally tried to fight the Calypsos and got Maya killed for doing so. And for some reason the game makes it out that Ava is right, despite the fact that she is clearly not. The story in this game is not the most important element of this game. However, Gearbox promised a more fleshed out and deeper story, but absolutely failed at providing that. So much of the dialogue in this game is cringe, and even though you can skip the cutscenes, you can't skip the dialogue. The story overall is one of the worst stories I have ever sat through in any game I have ever played, and that is an absolute fact. Now, for the most part, both the levels and the missions are very similar to Borderlands 2. In terms of the levels, you have more open-ended areas and more linear levels. In this game, the levels have much more open space, meaning that it is much more tedious to travel through these open-ended areas. However, there is a lot more to discover within these areas, such as a bunch of random mini-boss fights and other collectibles that can be acquired. The linear levels are also very similar to that of Borderlands 2, with a bunch of branching paths and some hidden secrets and chests you can find within them. The mission design is basically exactly the same as Borderlands 2. However, I can't help but feel that there are a lot of filler missions in this game that just kind of drag on. Eden 6, in my opinion, is the worst offender. For example, there is the riddles in the garden that is just kind of pointless, and a perfect example of filler within a level. And there are the missions where you find Clay's partners and where you go to the Jacob ship, which drags on. And well, these missions are just a little bit boring because of this reason. Now, overall, I don't think the levels or missions in this game are bad. They are actually quite alright, and there are some great missions and levels in this game as well. But the missions and levels in this game are not nearly as good as that of Borderlands 2's.
I know pain, I know dread, wicked vanity on the lead. The tears don't stop the fire.
The graphics in Borderlands 3 has seen a major upgrade. Character models are more detailed and look way better than in Borderlands 2. The environments look good as well in terms of the graphics, and there are overall just more details in Borderlands 3 in terms of the special effects, such as the explosions and the water splashing when you slide through it. There is however also the Zanara, which is the Malawan CEO pleasure yacht. I can't remember his name, pointless character. Anyway, the reason I bring up the pleasure yacht is because they clearly used a JPEG as the model and it looks absolutely shit, but despite that the graphics in this game looks great overall, and the shell shaded art style will help this game's graphics hold up for a very long time. There is one visual aspect that is very annoying though, and that is the amount of screen clutter this game has. If you get hit by any of the elements in this game, your screen will be flooded by some of the most obnoxious effects that takes up so much space on the screen to the point where it becomes distracting. Now, the environments in this game looks very good. There are much more diverse biomes in this game, mainly because this is the first Borderlands game where you travel to different planets. I think they did a great job by making these planets feel distinctively different from one another. The environments have definitely seen a major upgrade, and I think the environmental design team did a great job. But I have to mention one thing that bothers me about these environments, and that is the fact that in some of these areas it is very easy for the enemies to be camouflaged with the environments, and it makes it hard to see them and can kind of be annoying, but it's not that big of an issue. Now, despite some of these flaws, the graphics and environments of this game are very good and is one of the elements that has seen a major improvement from Borderlands 2. Out of all the elements of this game, the gameplay has seen the most significant upgrades. The combat feels much smoother and faster. The implementation of the slide is a nice touch and helps the player feel more nimble, which overall helps the movement in this game feel so much better. The feeling of the gunplay feels clean and impactful. This is helped by the great sound design, with every weapon having their own distinctive sound. Headshots now cause an explosion, which is stupid, over the top, and almost certainly helps the combat feel more impactful. The boss fights are pretty decent. I don't think that the boss fights in this game come close to that of Borderlands 2's boss fights for a couple of reasons. Now, there are more boss fights in this game than in Borderlands 2, which is nice, but there is a new mechanic that I don't like. Almost all of the boss fights have an immune phase where they can't be damaged. This serves no purpose, is just plain annoying, and completely kills the momentum and pacing in these boss fights. Some of these boss battles are bullet sponges as well, which doesn't help its case. The boss fights aren't bad by any means, but certainly a step down from Borderlands 2. The enemy variety has been improved, and well, Borderlands 2 already had a bunch of enemies, but they still managed to add more. A lot of the enemies have new movesets and attacks, which is pretty cool and helps the same enemies in this game feel different from the way they were in Borderlands 2. Each planet also has their own distinctive types of enemies as well, which is pretty cool. I have already mentioned the mini bosses, but there are a whole bunch of special enemies as well, and a lot of them have dedicated loot drops. The guns as well as the amount of guns have been improved as well. Given that the franchise is known for its guns, it would be obvious to assume that they would improve it, and they went full out with it. There are way more guns in this game, and more importantly, they are way more unique than they were in Borderlands 2. A lot of them have alternate firing modes, and some have unique and very cool gimmicks. Even the shields and class mods have been improved, with a lot of those items having unique gimmicks as well. Although I must say that this game does give a lot of good loot, and you can get a whole bunch of legendaries really easy. It is very easy to get legendary items in vending machines as well, and I mention this because some people might like this change from Borderlands 2 while other people might not. Skill trees are now also much more extensive and greatly expanded upon. There are way more builds for each character, and I feel like there is less reliance on meta builds, which I think is overall a good thing. I also think the endgame is much better, as they got rid of the true Vault Hunter mode from Borderlands 2, which was more of an annoyance than anything else. So with all of that said, I must say the gameplay is the greatest improvement to this game, and probably the only reason you should play this game. It is fun throughout the game and feels so much better than Borderlands 2, which already had great gameplay. I don't think it's crazy to say that Borderlands 3 is not the greatest in the franchise. It has a bunch of improvements to it and probably has the best gameplay out of all the games. However, I don't think the other elements of this game comes close to Borderlands 2. The story is absolute garbage. It's terrible, and it's easy for me to tell you to just avoid it, but you can't. You can't skip the dialogue in this game, which means you will be exposed to the toxic radioactive cringe. The missions and levels are not as memorable or fun as that of Borderlands 2. And yes, the environments and graphics is greatly improved upon. I do feel like Borderlands 2's environments has a certain charm to it that this game just doesn't have. For me, the only real reason to play this game is the gameplay, and again, some of the elements in the gameplay are also weaker in this game than they are in Borderlands 2. Do I think this game is bad? Well, not at all. Nor is it average. I still think this game is good, and when it comes to the question I asked in the beginning of this video, the answer is yes. I think it is worth playing this game in 2024. However, this game is not anywhere as good as Borderlands 2, and some of the factors I mentioned in this video will certainly turn people away from this game. So yeah, that is all I have to say about Borderlands 3. If you made it this far in the video, I thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.